The young mother of two boys, who's described as the life of the party, was gunned down, DeKalb police say, in her parents' driveway. Family members say Raesha was getting groceries out of the trunk when
The sound of 6 gunshots shattered the quiet afternoon on Kelly Chapel Road in DeKalb County. In the driveway of a home where a family had built memories for over 4 decades, 31-year-old Raesha Heard collapsed beside her car, groceries scattered across the pavement. Her 8-year-old son watched in horror as his mother's life slipped away before him. It was October 11, 2023, a day that would forever mark the devastating intersection of domestic violence, motherhood, and the fateful decision to leave an abusive relationship. Raesha was known for her radiant smile and described by friends as the life of the party. She was a devoted mother of 2 boys, pregnant with another child, and had recently taken the brave step many victims of domestic violence struggle to take. She attempted to leave. In the 6 weeks prior to her murder, she had obtained a temporary protection order against Justin Renee Lewis, the father of her children and a rapper who performed under the name Mad Music Cali. But legal documents couldn't stop bullets. This isn't just a story about a murder. It's about recognizing the warning signs of domestic violence, understanding the heightened danger victims face when leaving their abusers, and acknowledging how systems designed to protect the vulnerable can sometimes fall short. It's about a woman who chose freedom and safety for herself and her children, and paid the ultimate price for that choice. Before we continue with Raesha's story, I want to ask you to take a moment to consider the gravity of domestic violence in our society. If this topic resonates with you or someone you know might benefit from this information, please like this video and share it. Your single click could help someone recognize the warning signs before it's too late. Subscribe to True Crime Affairs for more videos that don't just tell stories, but provide valuable lessons that could save lives. To understand the profound loss that occurred on that October day, we need to know who Raesha Heard was beyond the headlines that would later define her final moments. Those who knew her spoke of a woman whose presence lit up rooms and whose absence now leaves an unfillable void in their lives. Known also by the name Rain Harris, Raesha was instantly recognizable by what many described as her beautiful smile. It wasn't just the physical expression but what it represented. An unwavering positivity that friends say she carried even through difficult times. She always had a big smile, one friend recalled, emphasizing that Raesha was always positive, never negative. This quality made her magnetic to those around her, earning her the reputation as the life of the party among her social circles. But beyond her vibrant social presence, Raesha's identity was deeply rooted in motherhood. She approached parenting with the same warmth and enthusiasm that characterized all aspects of her life. Her children weren't just an extension of herself. They were the center of her world. Friends noted how she balanced the demands of raising 2 young boys with grace and dedication, always putting their needs before her own. The news of her pregnancy had brought new joy to her life, representing hope and a future she was actively working to secure. The Heard family had deep roots in DeKalb County, having called Kelly Chapel Road home for more than 40 years. Their residence wasn't just a house but a landmark in the community, a place where multiple generations had grown up and where neighbors knew each other by name. Raesha had grown up in this tight-knit environment, forming connections that would later become an essential support system for her family. Her impact extended beyond family bonds. Friends consistently used phrases like beautiful personality when describing her, noting that she touched a lot of people's lives in ways both large and small. Whether through casual interactions at local shops, participation in community events, or deeper friendships, Raesha left impressions that lasted. Her ability to connect with others created a wide network of people who valued her presence in their lives. It was this combination of qualities, her infectious positivity, devoted motherhood, and genuine connection to others, that made the violence that ended her life all the more shocking to those who knew her. The disconnect between who she was and how she died created a painful cognitive dissonance for her community. How could someone who brought so much light experience such darkness? How could a mother so dedicated to protecting her children become a victim in front of them? These questions haunted those left behind, underscoring the senseless nature of domestic violence and the lives it steals. Raesha's murder wasn't the first devastating blow to strike the Heard family. To understand the full weight of what occurred on October 11, 2023, we must acknowledge the layered grief already present in their lives. At the time of her death, Raesha was mother to two young boys, ages 8 and 12. She nurtured them with the same positive energy and warmth that defined her interactions with everyone in her life. Her home was filled with the typical sounds of childhood: homework discussions, video games, and planning for the future. Adding to this family dynamic was the knowledge that it would soon expand. Raesha was pregnant, looking forward to welcoming another child into their world. But beneath the surface of their daily lives ran a current of profound grief. Just a year before Raesha's murder, the family had endured another unimaginable loss. Her eldest son, 15-year-old Raesha Heard, had been killed in an incident of gun violence. The family was still processing this tragedy, still learning how to navigate the world with this gaping absence, when violence again tore through their lives. For Raesha's parents, the sequential loss of a grandson and then a daughter created a burden of sorrow almost too heavy to bear. Yet within their pain came a resolute commitment. They would now take on the responsibility of raising Raesha's surviving children. These grandparents, already in their golden years when most are enjoying retirement and occasional childcare duties, now faced the prospect of full-time parenting of young children who had witnessed extreme trauma. The emotional and financial implications of this responsibility prompted the community to establish a GoFundMe campaign. The funds raised would help cover not only the immediate expenses of Raesha's funeral, but also the ongoing costs of raising her children, including crucial mental health services for a young boy who had witnessed his mother's murder. This support system extended beyond financial assistance. Family members rallied around the children, creating a protective circle of love. Friends stepped in with meals, childcare, and the countless practical tasks that become overwhelming in the wake of tragedy. The community that Raesha had touched during her life now mobilized to support those she left behind. Through these compounding tragedies, the resilience of the Heard family emerged as both a necessity and a testament to their strength. They faced the impossible, and then faced it again, drawing on deep reserves of love and the support of a community that refused to let them navigate their grief alone. Behind the facade of family photos and co-parenting posts on social media lay the complicated reality of Raesha's relationship with Justin Rene Lewis. Known in musical circles by his rapper name Mad Music Cali, Lewis was the father of Raesha's children and, according to family members, a source of fear and control in her life. The exact timeline of their relationship remains unclear from public records, but what is evident is that they shared a long history, one that produced 2 children together and a third on the way. Like many relationships that eventually turn violent, there's likely had moments of genuine connection and happiness interspersed with increasingly concerning behavior. What friends and family have revealed in the aftermath of Raesha's murder paints a picture of escalating domestic violence. The relationship had deteriorated to the point where Raesha recognized the danger she was in. According to those close to her, she had begun to see Lewis not as a partner but as a threat to her safety and that of her children. The signs were there, though they often are in cases of domestic violence, visible mainly to the victim and perhaps to those closest to them. Control patterns, isolation tactics, verbal aggression, these hallmarks of abuse typically precede physical violence. For Raesha, recognizing these warning signs led to her most courageous act, attempting to leave. In the 6 weeks before her murder, Raesha had made a concerted effort to pull away from Lewis, according to family statements. This period represented her recognition of danger and her determination to create safety for herself and her children. It was during this crucial window that she took the significant step of seeking legal protection, attempting to obtain a temporary protection order against Lewis. This timing aligns perfectly with what domestic violence experts identify as the most dangerous period for victims, when they are actively trying to leave their abusers. Research consistently shows that the risk of homicide increases dramatically during this time. Abusers, confronted with losing control over their victims, often escalate to extreme violence as a final assertion of power. The temporary protection order, while an important legal step, became merely a piece of paper in the face of Lewis's alleged determination to punish Raesha for her independence. What makes this aspect of Raesha's story particularly important is how common this pattern is. The steps she took, recognizing danger, making plans to leave, seeking legal protection, are exactly what we advise victims of domestic violence to do. Yet the system designed to protect her ultimately failed to do so, raising critical questions about gaps in our approach to domestic violence intervention. Before we continue with the events that unfolded on that October day, I want to ask you to engage with this content in a meaningful way. If you're learning something valuable about the warning signs of domestic violence, please hit the like button and subscribe to True Crime Affairs. More importantly, share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding these patterns. In the comments below, I'd like to hear your thoughts. What additional protections do you think could help those trying to leave dangerous relationships? Your engagement could spark a conversation that saves lives. October 11th, 2023, began as an ordinary Wednesday for Raesha Heard. The weather in DeKalb County, Georgia was mild that autumn day, with temperatures in the 70s, a perfect day for running errands. Raesha had gone grocery shopping, a mundane task that countless parents perform every day without a second thought. Her 8-year-old son accompanied her on this routine outing, perhaps helping select items or simply enjoying time with his mother. Late that afternoon, they returned to her parents' home on Kelly Chapel Road, where the Heard family had lived for over 4 decades. The driveway was familiar territory, a place where children had played, where family gatherings had spilled outdoors in warmer months, where everyday life had unfolded for generations of the family. On this day, it would become the scene of a calculated attack. Raesha had parked her car and was in the process of unloading groceries. Plastic bags dangled from her hands as she moved between the vehicle and the house. Her son was nearby, perhaps helping carry lighter items. The domestic scene was the epitome of everyday life. A mother returning home with food for her family, thinking about dinner preparations and the evening ahead. What happened next shattered this ordinary moment with sudden, brutal violence. According to witness statements, an assailant, later identified by police as Justin Lewis, approached Raesha from behind. He had apparently been waiting or watching for her return. Without warning or confrontation, he opened fire. Neighbors would later report hearing 6 distinct gunshots in rapid succession. The shots were so loud that they echoed through the neighborhood. One resident, who lived across the street, told local news that the gunfire was unmistakable. 6 clear, devastating blasts that broke the afternoon quiet. There was no argument, no escalation, no warning. Just the sudden explosion of violence that left Raesha collapsed beside her car, groceries scattered around her on the driveway. Most devastating of all elements in this tragedy was the presence of Raesha's 8-year-old son. He witnessed everything. His mother being approached from behind, the raising of the gun, the shots that took her life, her collapse to the pavement. In mere seconds, this child experienced a trauma that would forever alter his perception of safety, justice, and the world around him. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Neighbors who heard the shots called 911. Family members rushed outside to find Raesha fatally wounded and her traumatized son. Emergency services arrived quickly, but there was nothing they could do for Raesha. The medical examiner would later determine that she died from multiple gunshot wounds. By then, the shooter had fled the scene. The peaceful family home was transformed into a crime scene, with police tape cordoning off the driveway where Raesha's life had ended. Investigators photographed the scattered groceries, the bullet casings, the blood on the pavement. All the physical evidence of violence that contrasted so starkly with who Raesha had been in life. For Raesha's young son, the impact of witnessing his mother's murder cannot be overstated. Beyond the immediate shock and grief came the profound psychological implications of such trauma. Child psychologists note that witnessing the violent death of a parent is among the most severe traumas a child can experience. The effects can include post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, anxiety, sleep disturbances, and fundamental changes to how the child views relationships and trust. Family members immediately recognized the devastation this would cause. For them to have had to witness that, it is just unexplainable. It's so hard, said Kenya Cuffey, a friend of Raesha's, speaking to local news about the children's trauma. The family quickly began seeking appropriate mental health resources for the child, understanding that professional intervention would be essential to help him process what he had seen. As the sun set on Kelly Chapel Road that evening, a family was left to grapple not just with the loss of Raesha but with the knowledge that her final moments had been filled with terror and that her child had been forced to bear witness to violence no one, especially a child, should ever have to see. DeKalb County Police responded promptly to the scene of Raesha's murder, securing the area and beginning what would become a complex homicide investigation. From the outset, investigators had strong indications of who was responsible. Between witness statements from Raesha's son, accounts from neighbors who saw a figure fleeing the scene, and the family's reports about prior threats, police quickly identified Justin Renee Lewis as their primary suspect. Despite having a name and description of the alleged shooter, locating and apprehending Lewis proved challenging. He had disappeared immediately after the shooting, likely having planned his escape route in advance. This wasn't an impulsive crime but one that showed elements of premeditation. From the apparent surveillance of Raesha's movements to the ambush-style approach and immediate flight from the scene. The police issued internal alerts about Lewis but initially held back from publicly naming him. This investigative strategy is common in manhunts where authorities believe the suspect might still be in the area but monitoring news coverage. By withholding the name publicly, they hoped to maintain a tactical advantage and prevent him from going deeper into hiding. For Raesha's family and friends, this period of waiting was excruciating. Each day that passed with Lewis still at large represented both an ongoing danger and a delay in justice. The frustration grew palpable as days stretched into a week. "I am upset because it's day 6, and the person who did this is still not caught," one of Raesha's friends told local reporters, expressing the community's growing impatience. What made this waiting period all the more disturbing was Lewis's behavior on social media during this time. While police searched for him, he maintained an active online presence, posting on his accounts, as if nothing had happened. According to friends of Raesha who monitored his activity, this callous display of normalcy struck many as a particular form of cruelty. Not only had he allegedly taken Raesha's life, but he seemed to show no remorse or concern about the consequences. In one particularly disturbing incident that demonstrated his awareness of being sought, when a family member posted that Lewis was wanted and that they would find him, he reportedly liked the status, a digital taunt that caused additional distress to the grieving family. This behavior suggested not just a lack of remorse but an apparent satisfaction in the pain he had caused and the ongoing anguish of the manhunt. Eventually, police located and arrested Justin Renee Lewis. He was charged with malice murder in connection with Raesha's death, a charge that in Georgia specifically indicates an intentional killing with malice aforethought. This is the most serious murder charge under Georgia law, reflecting the prosecutor's assessment that the killing was deliberate and premeditated rather than a heat-of-passion crime. The arrest brought a measure of relief to Raesha's family, though they remained acutely aware that legal proceedings would force them to relive the trauma repeatedly through court appearances and testimony. They also acknowledged the sobering reality that even a successful prosecution and maximum sentence would never bring Raesha back or erase the trauma experienced by her son. For investigators, the case represented a tragic example of domestic violence escalating to homicide during a victim's attempt to leave, a pattern they had seen too many times before. The existence of the temporary protection order that Raesha had sought highlighted a critical gap in victim protection, raising questions about what additional measures might have prevented this outcome. As we examine this critical phase of seeking justice for Raesha, I want to ask you something important. Have you ever known someone who struggled to leave a controlling or abusive relationship? The barriers to leaving are often complex and numerous. If this video has helped you understand those challenges better, please hit the like button and share it with your community. In the comments, I'd appreciate hearing about resources in your area that help domestic violence victims safely transition away from abusers. Your knowledge could provide a lifeline to someone watching who needs help right now. Subscribe to True Crime Affairs for more videos that go beyond the headlines to provide meaningful insights and potentially life-saving information. In the aftermath of Raesha's murder, disturbing allegations emerged on social media platforms that suggested Justin Renee Lewis may have been involved in another violent death years earlier. These claims focused on the 2017 death of 25-year-old Sydney Dorr in New Orleans, who was reportedly Lewis's ex-wife. According to these social media posts, Sydney had performed under the stage name China Doll and shared Lewis's interest in music. Their relationship had apparently formed around this common passion, with the two collaborating professionally before becoming romantically involved. The specific allegations suggested patterns of behavior that mirrored aspects of what Raesha would later experience. The timeline places Sydney's death in May 2017, approximately 6 years before Raesha's murder. While this significant gap separates the two events, domestic violence experts note that abusive behavior often follows consistent patterns across different relationships. If these allegations contain truth, they would point to a concerning history of violence rather than an isolated incident. What makes these allegations particularly notable is how they surfaced, not through official police statements or press releases, but through community networks and social media connections between people who knew both women. In communities affected by violence, informal information networks often operate alongside official investigations, sometimes bringing forward connections that formal systems miss. However, it's crucial to emphasize that these allegations about Lewis's potential involvement in Sydney's death had not received official confirmation at the time of reporting. No public statements from New Orleans law enforcement linked Lewis to Sydney's case, and no charges had been filed against him in connection with her death. This lack of official confirmation creates an important caveat to these allegations. While they raise concerning questions about potential patterns of violence, they remain unverified claims rather than established facts. Criminal investigations operate on evidence and legal standards that social media discussions do not require. For investigators working on Raesha's case, such allegations would typically prompt communication with the New Orleans Police Department to determine if connections exist between the cases. Cross-jurisdictional information sharing is standard practice when similar patterns emerge across state lines. However, whether such communication occurred remains unclear from public records. The emergence of these allegations illustrates how domestic violence homicides can sometimes reveal previously hidden patterns of abuse. It also demonstrates how communities affected by violence often develop their own information networks to protect members and process trauma. Networks that sometimes operate with information not yet validated by official channels. The ripple effects of Raesha Heard's murder extended far beyond the crime scene tape on Kelly Chapel Road. For her family, the grief came in compounding layers. Not just the loss of Raesha herself, but the loss of what she represented as a mother, daughter, and community member. Her friend Kenya Cuffey articulated the depth of this loss. "Words can't explain how bad it hurts." This simple statement captured the inadequacy of language to convey the profound anguish experienced by those who loved Raesha. Her absence created a void that could not be filled. The absence of her smile, her voice, her presence at family gatherings, her role in her children's daily lives. Each holiday, birthday, and milestone would now be marked not just by celebration but by the awareness of who was missing. For Raesha's parents, the grief was compounded by having to become primary caregivers to her children. In their senior years, when many parents expect to enjoy the relative freedom of having raised their own children, they were thrust back into full-time parenting, now with the additional complexity of helping young children process profound trauma. This responsibility came during their own acute grief over losing their daughter. The emotional burden on Raesha's surviving children was perhaps the most devastating aspect of this tragedy. Her 8-year-old son, who witnessed her murder, faced not only the loss of his mother, but also the traumatic memory of how she died. Her 12-year-old, though spared witnessing the violence directly, now had to navigate adolescence without his mother's guidance. Both boys had already experienced the murder of their older brother Romello just a year earlier, creating a pattern of loss that no child should ever have to endure. The community's response to this tragedy demonstrated both the impact Raesha had on those around her and the power of collective action in the face of violence. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers were moved to contribute to the GoFundMe campaign established to support her children. The funds raised would help cover immediate funeral expenses and provide ongoing support for the children's needs, including crucial mental health services. Beyond financial contributions, the community mobilized in numerous ways. Meals were prepared and delivered to the Heard family home. Childcare was offered to give Raesha's parents moments of respite. Memorial gatherings provided spaces for collective grieving. Local domestic violence advocacy groups used the tragedy to renew calls for better protection systems for those attempting to leave abusive relationships. Schools played a crucial role in supporting Raesha's children, with counselors, teachers, and administrators creating safety plans to help them continue their education while processing their trauma. Experts in childhood grief were consulted to develop appropriate interventions, recognizing that the psychological impact of witnessing a parent's murder requires specialized approaches to healing. Faith communities also stepped forward, offering both spiritual support and practical assistance. Prayer services were held, not just to remember Raesha, but to ask for strength for her family and wisdom for those supporting them. Religious leaders provided counseling and connected the family with resources specifically designed to help children navigate grief from a faith perspective. Raesha Heard's story embodies both the profound tragedy of domestic violence and the critical importance of recognizing its warning signs. Her life, filled with warmth, positivity, and devoted motherhood, was cut short in an act of violence that reflects a pattern repeated too often across our nation. As we conclude her story, we remember not just how she died, but how she lived, with kindness, with love for her children, and with the courage to seek freedom from abuse. The lessons from Raesha's case are clear and urgent. First, the most dangerous time for victims of domestic violence is when they attempt to leave their abusers. The weeks following Raesha's decision to obtain a protection order and distance herself from Lewis proved fatally dangerous, a pattern consistent with research on domestic violence homicides. Second, legal protections alone are insufficient. A protection order is valuable but cannot physically stop bullets. We need comprehensive systems that provide not just legal documentation but actual safety during this high-risk period. Most importantly, Raesha's story reminds us that behind every domestic violence statistic is a real person. Someone with dreams, with people who love them, with children who need them. Her murder left 2 boys without their mother, parents without their daughter, and a community without a woman whose smile and spirit touched countless lives. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this: recognize the warning signs. Controlling behavior, isolation tactics, threats during attempts to leave. These are red flags that should never be ignored. If you or someone you know is experiencing these warning signs, reach out to domestic violence resources in your area. The National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233 provides 24/7 support and can connect you with local resources. Before you leave, please take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Affairs and hit the notification bell. Your subscription helps us continue telling these important stories and spreading awareness that could save lives. Share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding the patterns of domestic violence. And finally, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on how we can better protect those seeking to escape abusive relationships. Your engagement creates a community of awareness that honors Raesha's memory in the most meaningful way possible by preventing similar tragedies in the future.